BobbyFi, my man Eric Sheets-Haber. We're coming out for the first really big slate of the NBA season. Really happy with the chop of the lottery last night. I don't play the max entry scripts very often, so when I do and they hit, it feels really good. And look, there's nothing else I could have done. I did all the things. I had to shuffle some Beal nonsense around and didn't get too crazy off the board with the things. But I the hammer stack from Denver with the right pieces from Phoenix and Golden State, and it was good enough. So great start to the season. Love to have it. It's been a rough baseball season, so really excited about this NBA season.
Did you do anything with when they announced the Grayson Allen starting thing, or not really?
I didn't react much to Grayson Allen starting. I liked Eric Gordon better as a play anyway, but either way, I didn't really like. I had more Kuminga than I did them, so it didn't make a huge difference. And none of those guys were in obviously the winning lineup. And look, somebody wrote like from they DM'd me from State Kings or something. They're like, oh, well, I thought it was a 200,000 first place. I don't understand. And I was actually explaining it's a 21.
That's like what I people.
Well, how do you have 20 so many people? Like as if I did something wrong. And I'm like, no, that's the nuts. That's the actual nuts. What happened?
That's like what I sometimes post that on like sarcastically on Twitter when I chop for like 800 or something. I'm like, DraftKings lied. It said 200,000 for first or something like that.
Yeah. That's what I should have.
Emailing support. It's like.
But yeah, no, it feels really good. And now we don't have too much time to go through everything. And also, it's not all that interesting to go through 2 game slate. I did have a couple people asking me about thought process and stuff. I'll talk about that some other time. This is on a 2 game slate. There's really not so many options. I really talked through a lot of it on our show, and it worked out. And I'm really happy with it. And by the way, shout out to SaberSim, who obviously has partnered with us. I don't script as much very often, and I think they helped tweak me in the right direction, because it wasn't just that one. I had a good chance to win the FanDuel one. I almost tripled up on FanDuel without coming in the top 50 anywhere, because the lineups just sort of faded away at the end. But I was in first place of both, with 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter.
Wow!
So it was a shout out to say. And on FanDuel, I made literally 6 changes and had SaberSim do the rest for me, which is pretty unlike me. And I really was impressed by the lineups they came up with, because it worked out great. So with that said, Sheets, we can get into the slate tonight. Let's pull up your screen and go game by game, because it is a monster and there are some massive tournaments. And it's one thing from a bankroll thing, it doesn't seem smart after winning a bunch to put half of that back on the line. The problem is with the NBA, we don't have $1 million tournaments every week like we do in football. We don't have all this stuff every night. So when you have the 250Ks for first, the 200Ks for first, like they do on FanDuel and DraftKings tonight for the 555 on FanDuel with 888. For me, I'm going to take those shots as a tournament player, because just the prizes are just totally worth it for me to go for it. So I'm going to play more lineups today, not because I won just yesterday. I'm happy it gives me a little cushion, but I was probably going to go pretty heavy today anyway, because it's the monster slate, and you got 12 games and a lot to go through, and why can't we figure out as well as somebody else? So.
Yep. So just before you get into it, so I ended up doing well on both sides, 50% profit on both, and then I made money. It's really funny. I made money in the MLB Showdown, in the big one with a 0 in the captain, which is it doesn't happen too often. But that was pretty good. And as I mentioned to everybody, I was trying to screw around with the new features on SaberSim. I didn't get around to it, but I will. And again, what I'm going to try to do is have a total separate set of content when I do just completely just SaberSim, contest sim, kind of nerdy focus takes, so that people that are interested in that type of thing can look at that. And people that are interested in more, deep dive stuff can watch these. Something for everybody. And this slate is just, I don't know what to say except I guess let's get into it.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it. So why don't you start us off with the Washington Indiana game, because I had a different one ready to go.
Right. So there are 3 totals on this slate which stand out among all the games, and 2 of them are right off the bat. The Washington Indiana game and the Atlanta Charlotte game, and then there's one a little bit later. And right off the bat, you have just all kinds of insane value coming from Indiana. We have Obi Toppin, who is a flat 3K, who I'm getting a 24-point projection early. Not he's all listen, he's going to be just enormous chalk as well. But this is the NBA is kind of tough to fade these things sometimes. so he looks really good. As far as a spend up goes from Indiana, I do like Cerise Halliburton at 9,100, and then the center position is pretty much mispriced like across the board on the whole slate. As usual, that's one of the first things that Bobby taught me about the NBA is that usually just the center algorithm is just mispriced, and no matter how the different styles of basketball have changed or whatever it is, that remains the case. And tonight you get a bunch of them. So Miles Turner is one of them at 5,900. So on the Indiana side, I do like Turner, Halliburton, and Toppin, and then on the Washington side, you get Tyus Jones at 4,900. I mean, that looks good to me. I mean, I don't know. And then I didn't quite get to Jordan Poole really, but I have Kuzma as kind of the next play. So I do like Kuzma and Tyus Jones from Washington, and those Tyrese Halliburton from Indiana, and also Obi Toppin.
Yeah, so I'll go through, and like when we do these big ones, I'm going to always start with the visiting team and end with the home team.
Okay, sounds good.
No, you do your thing. I'm going to that's just my what I'm going to do. Just giving a heads up. I think that the entire Washington starting lineup is all terrific plays. It's just a matter of how you weigh them versus the slate. So Jordan Poole is going to average about 30 points in a game this year. I would be surprised if he averages less than 26 to 27. So you just factor that into me assuming automatically that's going to happen, and the fact that he's going to get some assists. He's going to have the ball in his hands a lot anyway. I actually think this is a very, very fair price for Jordan Poole. I think it's a very fair price for Kuzma, and I mean a good fair price. I like all of these plays. It's just going to be how do we rank them versus everything else. Tyus Jones feels like one of the easier plays at 4,900. He's a starting point guard now. We don't need to play him price him like he's a backup. But Gafford and Avdia, I would even get in the mix because I think, like you said, right off the bat, this is a game that feels very stackable. Obi Toppin is going to be really popular, and it's going to be really hard to talk me out of playing him probably 50% or more. We'll see as we go through, but like 3K for a guy who I literally think is going to score, he's got a projection of around 24, 25. Honestly, that number being around 30 wouldn't even have surprised me today as a projection. Miles Turner and Halliburton are my next two favorite plays. They're so deep with the wing stuff. To start the season, I was thinking like maybe I'll play more Bruce Brown than I will Mathurin, but I kind of like Mathurin. They also just gave the extension to Neesmith, and they've got Buddy Hield who they're going to try and trade. Just a little too crowded. So the plays I feel the most confident in here are Halliburton, Turner, all of Washington starting five, and then Obi Toppin. I think it's a really good game right off the bat to target. It's got a 235 total. Speaking of totals, by the way, Sheets 3-0 first night on the betting streets. The unders hit easily, and the Nuggets won fairly handily. So
did that Nugget go under? I don't know what the total was.
It was under. Yeah, it was under by a few points.
Mm-hmm.
The Lakers and another one was. I'm sorry, that second game was way under. But I think we're going to look for more unders tonight. But this feels like a really good spot to attack, and there's going to be something you hear a lot with Washington this year. Beware of blowout risk. That's true, but the truth is, if you want to stack this game, you just have to just sort of stack and hope. And we
the spread's only 5.5.
We don't know how good Indiana really is yet. Is the right thing. But Washington is supposed to contend for the worst team, and Indiana is supposed to be a playoff team. So it's kind of weird to 5.5. They don't really know what we've got yet, but just throwing it out there because I do think this is one of the games that's definitely one of the highest level interest games for me.
I mean, I know that it's a big slate, and we want to go game by game. But again, for people that are just joining our concept for the first time in the NBA, I do think it's important to go over some general stuff. What do you think about stacking in the NBA, about playing multiple guys from each game, and because that's always been kind of a point of contention. There's a whole group of people who think that it doesn't matter. And then I remember we like to just take that overtime risk, you know what I mean? Just in case, if it goes to overtime, you get, a couple of guys. And the cool thing is it hasn't really been solved yet, how correlation matters. I mean, what are your thoughts on run backs and things like that.
I think people who say it doesn't matter at all should absolutely never stack in baseball. Then, if they believe it doesn't matter for this, it matters. In my opinion, in a lot of ways, it matters more. Now, you don't need to have to, but it's like a tie goes to the runner type of situation. If you have plays in similar price ranges, but it fits with your game stacks, and you have a big man, a big man and a guard that sort of handle each other nicely because they're not really cutting into each other. They actually, in some cases, can correlate. We'll talk about correlation more as the season goes on. Teams are still new, so it's hard to figure out right now. But I think that it does matter, and I also don't mind if I have days where I have no correlation whatsoever. Using yesterday as an example, like you wanted to have 4 Nuggets on all your teams, but you didn't want more than one Laker, and the only Laker you wanted was Taurean Prince by the end of the day. So there's no direct answer. It's going to be slate by slate in terms of how much I do it. On bigger slates, I actually tend to stack a little bit more and try and get correlation from a game because realistically, just over 5% of games go into overtime. Games with a 3-point spread or less go into overtime about 8% of the time. And I know that sounds like a small number, but when you add that into what your guys are going to get those extra minutes, I really think it makes sense to stack up, especially the close spreads on games like this. But I don't mean that doesn't have to mean you play 6 guys from one game. It means you look for maybe 3 or 4, the studs, value, and a run back, maybe throw in an extra big if you like the big. And a game like this Indy Washington game that could be the highest total on the slate is a game that I think that you're going to want to try to at least target in some of your lineups.
I think the important thing that you mentioned there, Bobby mentioned there, is the tie goes to the runner thing. Now, it's almost like an advantage in some degree to play hand-built lineups instead of letting the optimizers give you what it gives you, because like if you're playing hand-built lineups and you're between like a couple of guys like for that last spot, and maybe one projects like 1 point less than the other, but he does fit like a correlative build. You can just say, you know what, I'll eat the 1 point and I'll just go for it. Sometimes the optimizer's not going to get that for you. So something to keep in mind when you're going through the lineups. I think this is a fair compromise that if you're trying to judge 2x2s or 1x1s, you just don't exactly how to finish it. All else being equal, just go for the game stack.
Right.
And if you have to eat like a half point of projections, who cares?
Right. And I also would throw in when you have the really obvious value, like a top end tonight, for example, it makes that game so much more interesting, like more fun to stack around it because you're already betting on you're going to have most of your lineups or a huge portion of your lineups with this guy in there, and getting some back and forth in that it certainly seems like it makes sense. Especially we'll talk about pace and all that stuff. Again, we don't know what all these teams are going to play like, but I can promise you, Indiana and Washington will both be near the bottom probably defensively and right near the top in terms of offensive points per game. So, and by the way, we jump right into the probably the next. I don't know if it's the next most, but it's certainly one of the next games you'd want to target, I think. Sheets, why don't you start off with this one though?
Yeah, so it's interesting. This was one of the other games that had the high total, right? The Atlanta-Charlotte. But when I dive deep into the projections and the rankings and stuff, nobody really stands out as that great of a play. I do have LaMelo obviously has a lot of upside on Charlotte, and currently I have him at sub 10% ownership. So yeah, I mean that makes some sense. But aside from that, I'm not getting a lot of value here. You're getting the Mark Williams just because, as I mentioned, pretty much all the centers just kind of look like this right now. But aside from these two, I'm not really getting to too much in this game, despite the fact that you'd want to because it has a really, really high total. What do you got here?
Yeah, so I kind of agree, but I also think that there's like some opportunity because that people aren't going to play it because of the pricing. I think LaMelo Trey, LaMelo Hunter, both of those sides make sense. Now, I actually I have Poole ahead of DeJounte Murray, but I think that like it's not like by a huge number. And I have LaMelo a little bit behind Halliburton because of the price, but really it's again very, very close for me. And Trey's a little further back. I think he's going to play a little more off ball this year. I don't think he'll lead the league in assists. And everybody else sort of looks like a good play. I guess my favorite other plays would be PJ Washington. Probably, I guess you'd have to say somewhere between Hayward, Washington, all these guys in the same price range, and then Mark Williams. I think I like Mark Williams the best of that bunch, but he is center. He's a center, so that's a little frustrating. And then the other one that's sort of interesting to me is that he's not going to project well, I don't think. But I guess he's projecting okay. I sort of think Okongwu is like a really good play here. He's really taken over more of the main minute role by the end of last year, and great offensive rebounder against a team that sheds offensive rebounds. But the question is, can we play a backup on the slate this size? So it just feels a little, and he's also center only eligible. So I like these plays. I like the guys in this game. How much of them I get to based on our little quick conversation right now? Probably not as much as you would think when you just see the game on paper, right?
Just every once in a while, Bobby, I might say misspeaks, but he says the wrong name. You meant instead of you said Ball Murray or whatever. You said Hunter. Did you like Hunter or no?
No, I didn't say Hunter, did I?
You did. No, you did. And you misspoke.
Oh, that was a mistake. I did not mean to say that.
Because usually that's exactly the guy you don't play as the other.
Yeah, I'll save him for my small slates. I'm not going to play him.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a mistake on my part. My bad.
Okay, sounds good. All right, great. You want to move on to what became
Houston, Orlando?
This is actually a weird thing, like to see Fred VanVleet on Houston.
Yeah.
You know, because like Houston, I get this feeling that Houston's that team that has just no discipline, no care, just freaking just whatever. And now you actually have, kind of a mature point guard like on the team. I don't know what's gonna come of that, but I guess I'll just start, and I'll just start with the center because, again, like all these guys are look really good across the whole slate, and this is Bobby's basically invention, the Alfred Sengun at 6,700. But aside from that, I'm looking and I don't really see all that much from this game. I really have to scroll down quite a bit to get to anything that I like except for Sengun. So, that my analogy with looking at colleges, when you're thinking of going to a big college, you try to make a big school still seem small. I guess maybe just Xing out this game and not worrying too much about it is a way to make a bigger slate seem smaller.
So this is going to be the really strange team to follow this season, this Houston, because they've been sort of in the dumps for a while. They've built up a decent talent-wise roster. Ime Udoka is he's literally a guy who was pulling Celtics out of games just for taking one bad shot. Now he's got a team full of guys who almost exclusively take bad shots. And any mistake made defensively, same thing, yanked right out of the game. So I'm really curious to see how he's going to handle this team, especially with you add Dylan Brooks to the mix of an already sort of dysfunctional team. It's going to be interesting to see. I like Sengun in this game. I really like him this season. I think you're going to see monster games out of him. The price might look a little bit high. Remember, this guy can get 50 plus, and he's going to get the minutes. It's really his job now, and they're actually trying to win to start the season. So that's a guy. I also think Jalen Green and Jabari Smith are totally in play, but probably on the outside looking in for me. Jabari Smith, I still think has room to grow. He was putting up 40s left and right at the end of the season, and Jalen Green we know just is an immense talent. The problem is, Orlando will play a little slower, I think, this year, and I actually think they're going to be a very decent team, a team that probably will contend for the playoffs. The one that sort of stands out for me on their side, and it's not going to be a projection thing, if you listen to any NBA podcast and just talking about guys making leaps and who they'd rather have, there literally is like almost a consensus amongst NBA nerds, NBA experts that the best player on the Magic is not Paolo Banchero, that it is Franz Wagner, and that this is the year that Franz Wagner makes the leap. So if you talk about the make the leap play, it's Franz Wagner for me and Sengun, and I can get behind both that. I just want to be ahead on these guys in general. The problem is maybe not the right slate to do it right off the bat, but Franz Wagner is going to be putting up sort of, I think, similar to Giddey-ish type numbers last year. And we know Giddey was at times like a $7,500 player last year. So just wanted to throw that out there. Franz Wagner, I think you're going to see a big year out of. But just a little bit too deep, a little too many bodies, a little too many mouths to feed for me to go crazy here. It's interesting to see Houston also with a lower total than some of these other teams, and it's mostly due to the Magic. But 221 total for the Rockets. Last year, I felt like every total was 240 that they played in. But I'll post my bets a little later today. Anyway.
Are we going to talk about our bets in this show or
the early shows are a little tough because I still like to try and finish my thoughts sometimes, but I'll point them out when there's ones that stand out to me. The first one, I mean, honestly, sadly, is a game that I hope stays close, the Indy-Washington game, but I do like Indy to cover in that game. All right, let's And by the way, I'm going to lean the same way. I'm not going to say bet every under, but I'm going to say that the unders early in the year are better than the overs. I would bet you more unders today than overs. It happened. It happens at the start of the season most of the time. I know Vegas tries to keep up with it, but it's just really hard to do. So I'm going to lean unders mostly. Boston, New York, Sheets. What do you got with your Knicks?
Okay, so I think I'm going to come right out of the gate here. Okay, so the Celtics added Drew Holiday. Okay, so you got Drew Holiday, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Porzingis. Whoever the other part of the starting five is, whatever. Like, I don't know how anybody's going to score on these guys. If you want to know the truth, they're at the Knicks and they're only giving like 3 or something like that. So the Knicks are a freaking lock in this game. I mean, they just have to be. I mean, how are the Celtics not favored by 14? You know, so I'm going to take the Knicks plus the 3 right out of the gate in my first bet, maybe my last of the season. Who knows? So I'm going to take a shot. I have no idea what that's all about. Nonetheless, as far as DFS goes, I don't really have much of anything here. I mean, I would imagine it would be a sort of a low-scoring. It came from the Knicks side. How did they score against that team? I have no idea. So I'm going to probably pass this game from a DFS perspective. What do you like here?
It's tempting with like the problem is I don't know how much he's gotten used to playing with these guys just from the preseason, but Drew Holiday at 6,100 is something that I can probably talk myself into. It just feels like 40 more than 30 to me. You know what I mean? Like I just feel like his mid rate, he's maybe projected at 30. I think 35, 36, 37 should be more where it's at. That makes him a good play if that's your median. Everybody else looks okay. The one other guy you could go for me that I would consider playing in some lineups tonight. Again, and by the way, you could play Tatum, you could play Brown. There's just a lot of good plays, so it's hard to talk through every single one. I would say Kristaps Porzingis would be my second favorite play in this game. A little back in New York kind of a revenge type of thing. They want to get him involved in the offense, and this is a great spot where you could definitely see Porzingis having a big game here against the I don't want to come out and guard you Mitchell Robinson and whether sometimes they'll put Randall on him. Those guys don't want to be hanging out 30 feet from the basket, so maybe this is a night where we get Kristaps to shoot a little bit hot and carry it. I don't have the same take you do on the game. I don't necessarily have a favorite one way or the other. I do think overall this year the Celtics are significantly better than all the teams in the East except for maybe Milwaukee.
Oh, for sure.
So I'm not going to be taking anti-Celtics takes very often, but if you're going to do it, it's going to be very early in the season. And I also think Jason Tatum has a very good chance to win MVP this year. And I don't think he's one of the best 4 players. I think his team is going to likely have the best record or one of the 2 best records. And I think it's enough for.
Well, you know what? We didn't do the NBA preview thing. Maybe not this though.
I did post all my stuff.
Oh, so you posted your MVP bets and stuff?
I posted all the bets, yeah.
Oh man, I wanted to check it out. Okay, I wanted to talk through what could you get on Tatum, like 10-1?
Tatum, I think was 12-1 at the time.
Okay, I'm just guessing.
Something around there. I think that's what it was. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think that's what it was.
And how much that guy that favorite to win the Rookie of the Year? What is he like -500 or something?
I think he should be like minus $1 million.
That's what I mean.
I think there's a really crazy path where he could end up being like an MVP candidate.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Can you get like 100-1 on MVP?
Yeah, it's something crazy, but because people started betting it, it started dropping. So I think it was in the 50s or 60s, which is crazy. It should be in the hundreds because he's not really going to win the MVP, but he is a pretty good bet for Defensive Player of the Year. Nobody's ever covered more ground than that guy's going to cover.
Can guys ever really win the MVP? I mean, they're not supposed to. Like, could I get if I bet Shea at 40-1? Is that even remotely live or no?
Yeah, I mean, what did he finish 4th last year? 3rd?
Oh, did he? Oh, I didn't even know that. Okay.
Yeah, and they added Chet. So if they make a big jump, that's sort of what you want to look for with the MVP. Being clearly the best player on your team and the team that's got one of the best records or makes the biggest jump. That's going to sort of stir people in your favor. And Shea can do it. I don't think he's going to, but again, he's 40-1.
But I don't know if he's 40-1. Is he 40-1?
No, I actually think he's more I thought he was in the 20s.
Oh, okay.
I'm not 100% sure though. I haven't looked at it in the last couple of days.
Okay.
And by the way, it changes drastically because if anybody who watched last night, it's just like a reminder that Jokic is significantly better than probably everybody else in basketball.
It's ridiculous.
It's just too easy for him. It's a different game for him. All right. Minnesota, Toronto, Sheets. What do you got here?
I hate to be like the Grinch here, but
oh, you got something. Come on.
I don't know. I'm okay. So here, so I'm going to scroll down my sheet, but just for the hell of it, I'm even going to sort by point per dollar. And what team do we have? Toronto and who?
It's Toronto and Minnesota.
Okay, I got Nickeil Alexander-Walker at a flat 3K, and then that's okay. So you want to talk about guys that can always do something? So I guess Anthony Edwards can always do something, right?
Yeah.
I'm not getting to any of these guys. I don't know what to tell you. I promise you, I'll give you guys some other games. I just don't have anything.
Yeah, I think that this Nickeil Alexander-Walker is going to be like SaberSim has him projected significantly higher than everybody else does.
Oh, really?
I think that the ownership, like, it's hard to, and you see, I think it's definitely a play that I'll consider. It's a little weird to play backups on 12 gamers, but he does get the run. It's not like a great matchup or anything, but 3K is 3K. And if you play him with Toppin, you can sort of do what you want. And that should be the theme early in the year of Stars and Scrubs, because all of the studs are a little, not all of them, mostly a little bit underpriced is what I would say. The other thing that I wanted to point out in this game, I actually like Scotty Barnes' price. I think that he's totally in play for me. And it is interesting to consider the Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns thing and what they try and do with Towns and all that. I just don't think I'm going to do anything today with it. So I guess really for me, it's just the Nickeil Alexander-Walker, the Scotty Barnes. It's a great matchup for Podol. Maybe I should look at Podol a little further, but I think that it's Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Scotty Barnes for me. And I think Scotty Barnes is actually a pretty good play. Like, again, this is part of what you bet early in the season. You're trying to bet on the guys making the leap. The last 2 years, having Shea would have been a perfect example of this, where he was being underpriced consistently. This is what we're trying to find. So I'm going to stay with my theme and use some Scotty Barnes. All right, you have Detroit or
I have Cleveland against Brooklyn, and so I'm going to go on a big limb here. Okay, so I got something for you. All right, so Jared Allen is out, coming back to Brooklyn. So I am going to suggest that Evan Mobley is a good play at 6,300. I know that's going to be shocking to the universe. Probably only 40% of the people are going to agree with me, but I haven't given a play in a while, so we will go with a very chalky, but it fits the description of number one, picking up stuff from when guys are out. Number two, what you're saying is making that next leap. I mean, the guy's freaking a stud anyway, and I think that he's power forward eligible, which is always helpful. So I like him quite a bit. Also, Donovan Mitchell is always in play. Darius Garland is always in play. So maybe we could start. Maybe we got something here. So if there's anything on the Brooklyn side that I like, I mean, I have to squint a little bit, but I guess Dinwiddie's not the worst play I've ever played. Claxton, he's just one of the other Brooklyn guys. So I don't know. Okay, so let's do that. Let's play Mobley and this Mitchell. Mitchell's shooting guard eligible, by the way, which helps. And then maybe Dinwiddie, and then we'll start from there. How about that?
Yeah, so let's see what happens with Darius Garland first, because
that's what I meant. Either Mitchell or Garland.
So if Garland is out, the slate becomes pretty straightforward,
Oh, then you play LeVert, right? I mean,
you play LeVert, or you play some Mitchell, and you play Mobley. pretty straightforward.
Oh, it says he's expected to play, and he went through morning shoot around.
I expect him to play. Yeah, I'm just throwing it out there because we've seen some weird stuff already.
Yeah.
I like the Darius Garland play if you're going to make that play here. It's not going to work every night for you, but the guy has 60 plus upside. He's 7K, and I just think I think he's an interesting play. I don't mind if anybody wants to play Mitchell. I just am not getting there. I like the other 9K guards better. And I think Mobley's a very strong play. It is interesting if you look at this team, though. does kind of make you want to play a little bit more Mitchell and Garland and Mobley, because I mean, other than that, you've got basically 3-and-D guys all the way through, with the exception of Karis LeVert. And I think Karis LeVert is an interesting play. So I have Mobley, and Mobley as a priority, Garland as a consideration for a priority, and LeVert probably just on the outside looking in, but certainly I'm open to it. And I'm just going to say this is a terrible matchup for this. I have a weird feeling we're going to see Ben Simmons on a lot of winning lineups as long as he's down in this price range very, very soon. He looks more active. The guy can do it without scoring. But I just think in this matchup against a slower paced team, I'm probably just going to stay away here. You have the George Niang, who probably starts at 3,400. I don't know for sure that I think he's being underprojected, first of all. And I don't know for sure that he's going to start, but they did go out and get him. He's a good 3-and-D guy. I just don't think 3,400 types of George Niang are the right plays in this slate. However, I would have said the same thing about Taurean Prince on this type of slate, and he would have his 9Xing would have been certainly something you would have found useful. So George Niang in a similar mold to the Taurean Prince last night. I just don't think it's going to have the same success. All right, Detroit, Miami.
Pass. I mean, what is this? What is this game?
I think this feels like a pass to me.
Zero. You tell me, King Cunningham is 9K. I mean, I'm just like,
I know, but it's pretty. I don't know. Well, he's pretty.
It's just a pass.
I think you're right. The only thing I want to throw out there is don't be surprised if you get this is a great game for Tyler Hero to play hey, I just came back and I know everybody's talking about everything else from how they went to the finals without me. I think they're going to try and get him very active. They also want to trade him. He's 6,300 against a bad Detroit defense. That's a play I'd be open to. I'd be open to Jalen Duran. That's pretty much all of the things I have from this game. I mean, Bam is in play, but it's just like, do we really want to do that on this slate? I don't think so.
All right, so we got some good ones coming up, I promise. Right, so for me at least. So starting with this one, New Orleans, Memphis. According to what I have, like 2 of the top plays on the slate are both in this game. Actually, 3 of the top 10. They're all going to get ownership, but whatever. First, on the Memphis side, I have Jaren Jackson Jr. power forward eligible at 6,600. It's a very similar play to Mobley in that they're the same positions. They both look really, really good, and they're both going to be pretty popular. So you can either choose them or play both, or fade them both, whatever. And then the other one from Memphis is I have Desmond Bane, he's eligible for every position on the board except for center. I don't know. It's like I think I play him at goalie in my hockey lineups actually. So Desmond Bane, I like him as well. And then on the New Orleans side, and this is a guy I don't play all too often, but he just looked really, really good. This price is Brandon Ingram at 7,700. So I like all 3 of those guys: Jaren Jackson, Desmond Bane, and Brandon
Ingram. So the Brandon Ingram thing, I think he's being a little over-owned at early look. Goldie's got him at 26%. You've got him at 23%. That feels a little high to me. So I did initially like Ingram. So now I just made it into I probably look at playing one of Ingram, McCollum, Dyson Daniels, or Joe Val, because I like this matchup in many different ways for all these guys. I kind of think Joe Val is a sneaky play on this slate, but we all know that could end 2 minutes into the game with his first 3 fouls, as we saw happen so often last night. By the way, that was one thing I just, I'm not going to vent. Obviously, I won the tied for first for the tournament, but it was annoying to watch some of my high-low own plays all pick up 3 fouls right away. Like Gabe Vincent, 3 fouls in 3 minutes, in the first half. And then, of course, has a good second half. And it was just like crazy how many times it happened last night. But I like that sort of pool of these guys. You do have stuff on the other side that you kind of – Jaren Jackson, 6,600, feels like a really good play. But at the same time, another foul-prone guy who's going to have crazy high ownership.
Yep.
I think Desmond Bane is an incredible play, but he's also going to have incredibly high ownership. I still consider him to be one of the priorities in the slate. Xavier Tillman, I am curious what they do, because this team has not been – they're the best offensive rebounding team in basketball with Steven Adams. Now with Steven Adams lost for the year, you kind of have to get Tillman ready. And I think Tillman is solid. And look, I think you could even play a little Marcus Smart. These teams both have the potential to be very fast playing teams. I just don't know which version of them we're getting on opening night. So that's what I've got here is Jackson, Bain, run it back with some Ingram, but it's pretty popular. Maybe your get creative play is Joe Val, and then Dyson Daniels. Just you're betting on a kid just on the way up, and he's going to get plenty of run in the backcourt. He also could end up playing alongside of McCollum quite a bit because Herb Jones is truly more of like a 3, as is Brandon Ingram. So they don't really they might look other ways and play a couple 2s, play Zion at the 5, 7. So I'm interested to see how it goes. But for right now, the priorities: Jackson, Bain, probably Ingram, but one of Ingram, Daniels, McCollum, Joe Val is the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I wonder maybe Marcus Smart is sneaky tonight.
I think it is kind of an interesting play, and he will take over certain spots in these situations. And yeah, I think that's interesting. And by the way, like if Zion goes out and puts up 30 and 20, it's not going to surprise me. But I'm not going to be doing that at this price in this slate.
Is he like full go, whatever that means this season? I mean,
they're acting like it. They played him in the preseason. I don't know. I think they'll probably still my guess is he doesn't play maybe he plays 32 minutes or something. Maybe he plays 30. I don't think it's going to be too much higher or lower. I don't think they're going to go out and play him 40 minutes or something, but I think 32 seems like a good number. All right, let's get the Clay. I think that I can answer that question for Sheets. He said, "Can you show us how your hand build using your Sheets?" I don't know if we've got a hand. I don't think we have that yet. We don't think we figured it out yet. So I think we got to figure it out.
Yeah, no. I will do a separate video on how to use my sheets. And I'll do that either today or tomorrow.
Oh, neat. Well, there you go.
And how to hand build.
All right, nice. All right, OKC Chicago Sheets. What do you got?
Yeah, let's go. I'm in. Let's do it. And again, it's almost like these guys just haven't been playing, but I mean, they're all these Chicago guys are really cheap. I mean, the guys that we like to play, the DeRozan 7,100, Levine 6,800, Vooch 6,900. They're all pretty cheap, and they're probably in a pretty fast-paced game here with Oklahoma City. And I'm kind of down with this. And it looks kind of expensive, but maybe I really can't get to Shea. But maybe not. But he's going to be like 2% owned. But I like the Chicago guys here for sure. I mean, they're not going to be, I don't think, particularly earth-shattering either. I mean, I have Vooch at 19%. I have Levine, 27%. Jesus.
Yeah.
DeRozan at 17. So you're going to – this is the way the NBA is, man. It's tough. It's tough to find good plays that nobody's playing. I mean, what the hell? Can you imagine? But I do like all those guys at those prices. And maybe that's what you're supposed to do, just overpay for Shea. That's worked a lot of times, by the way. Overpaying for Shea in this economy.
Yeah, I can't quite get to anything that feels great on the OKC side, to be honest. It's overpaying in a way that I just don't like. I feel like even if he has a great game tonight, Halliburton has a lot less to deal with, and he's $1,400 cheaper. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Shea now has Chet, Giddey, Jalen Williams, who handles the ball like crazy. Isaiah Joe off the bench, who's going to be gunning. It's just a lot for him to contend with, and he might put up worse numbers this year, but become just a much better player. Even it's just going to be harder for him to have those 30 and 14 kind of games with 7 rebounds and 4 steals.
So tell me about this Chet guy.
Chet Holmgren is going. So I think if you're making a rookie of the year bet, he's the bet to make. He was number 2 overall pick in the draft. He didn't play last year because he was injured. He has a similar type of build. He's like a 7-1 version of Wembanyama and not quite as handily with the ball, but he's going to be one of the shot block leaders as well. He's also going to have put up really, really good all-around stats, terrific team player, really, really a good anchor guy to have. Really skinny. That's the only problem. He looks like Wembanyama, but Chet is going to be a monster this season. I think he and Wemby are pretty clearly the 1-2 favorites for the rookie of the year. And that's I really think that's probably the only way Wemby can use it without an injury. But I love that. I love the Bulls side. I just I think not you have to, but I think you probably want to be playing one of Levine, DeRozan, and Vooch. My favorite would be Levine, but he's going to be the most popular. And I think that you can spread those 3 guys out where we're multi-entering because I think they're all really good plays. I also think you could play them together, and it's totally fine at the prices they're at. I just think I would rather not do that because I don't have a great run back. And I'm going to do it probably a little bit anyway. I don't have a great run back, and there's just so many plays in the slate. It feels weird to take two guys in the same team with no real correlation stuff.
Is this Chet guy good enough to like play right now at 6,500?
I think maybe. It's hard to know, to be honest.
Is he like going to start? I mean,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he'll be their starting center. I mean, maybe they try something else and bring him off the bench. I don't know. I think that they start him. I'd be surprised if they don't.
Sorry.
But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he put up a big game. I just think I'm going to wait to do it for a different spot. Next, you have Sacramento and the Kings.
I do, and this is another one that reminds me of the Charlotte game with respect to the fact that the total is really high, but the pricing is pretty bad.
Right.
I'm getting maybe some Fox and Sabonis as I would normally get, but not a lot more than that. The one value piece, and he's going to be obviously really popular on the other side of the game, is Taylor Horton-Tucker. So he's available at every position, including goalie, and he's 4,500. I have him at 30% ownership right now, but he is showing up as a good value play. So there's him, and it just doesn't feel like, I don't know, like who else do you play? Who else do you play here? I don't know. So Fox, Taylor Horton-Tucker on the other side, maybe Sabonis. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really play Fox on the road.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like as much, just because he's so good at home, and I'm probably not going to at this price tonight. But I think that the price is reasonable. I think everything's fair about that. I'm looking for a big boost this year from Keegan Murray. I think you're going to see another guy taking the leap. I don't know if you want to play him tonight, but I just think that he's just throwing that out there because I think it's important to cover for the whole season. I do like the Utah side a little bit. I think that THT. You could throw Sexton into the mix if you wanted to say, oh, maybe Sexton gets some of that run. But I think one of those guys has a good game here, and they're 4,500 and 4,800. I think THT would be who I side with. But he's going to have, coming off the bench with Sexton, you're going to have less Clarkson minutes with Sexton. And Clarkson's a big shooter, but like Clarkson's only 6,200. Just feels like everyone outside of Markkanen is a little too cheap on the Jazz side. So I would say THT and actually Walker Kessler would be my preference. Walker Kessler's another guy I expect to make the jump. You have a team that attacks the basket a ton against the guy. I said Chet and the Wembanyama will be right up there for blocks this year. Walker Kessler will be the guy who leads the league if they don't, in my opinion. Those are the three guys who I think can lead the league in blocks. And Walker Kessler is going to be one of the better defensive players. I think he's going to make some big strides. Didn't play much on the U.S. team, but I think it's good to have that experience. So I like the THT and Kessler in this game the most, but I'll mix in some Clarkson. I just think the whole Utah side feels a little underowned considering the speed, the pace of the matchup. What is it? The second highest total on the slate. Might be the highest total on this. Actually, I think it is the highest total on the slate. I think you want to get exposure to some of this Utah stuff, even though they play a lot of guys. So THT and Kessler, but you're welcome to mix in Clarkson and some of the other pieces as well.
So speaking of leading the league in blocks, I mean, we go to this Dallas-San Antonio game. I mean, I haven't really been following, the college kids or wherever Wembanyama came from Europe or whatever. And I didn't really watch him play too much in the preseason. I saw a couple of possessions or whatever. But all I'll say is that I'm just looking at his game log here, and it says, forget the game log, it says he had 5 blocks in his last game in 21 minutes.
I think he will lead the league in blocks this year.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of
if you watch clips of this guy and you coach basketball before, so you understand, You've never seen anybody cover this much ground. He's blocking, like he'll recover from under the basket and block a guy's 3-point shot who catches the ball as he's under the basket.
So a guy like this coming into the NBA, like, are they going to like play him like 36 minutes? I mean, how do you play a guy like?
It's kind of weird. I think from what they saw in the preseason that they think that they're better than they maybe were ready to be. So there's a chance, and I think it's going to depend on that. And I think that they want to be competitive sooner. You saw Pop called Steve Kerr an asshole in one of his press conferences because they're like, oh, this will rejuvenate Pop and everything. He's like, what was I dead? He got kind of pissed off. But I think there's going to be a little fight here, and I think that there is some rejuvenation for this whole side because of how great Wembanyama is. And this is not like a question mark, guys. There's no like if he has a bad game and people want to write, oh, he's over. This guy is a 0% fail case. His worst case is one of the best defensive players of all time and a good offensive player. Like he really has a chance to be like one of the greatest players of all time because there's never been anybody like him. And I know it's over. You've heard this stuff all offseason. I'm buy-in 100%. I've watched him play. It's just a sure thing to me. However, on this game, on the other, so the pieces of this game that I like, there's a guy named Luka Doncic who's pretty good. And
he's still in the league.
If they make the top 5 in the West, he's my bet to win the MVP. I just think that's a tough task. I like Luka. I like Sohan. And you'd think with them just getting Grant Williams, but it just feels wrong to play Grant Williams on this slate. But Luka and Sohan will both go into my, borderline priority list. This Sohan, by the way, you talk about a fun team to watch. It's going to be the Spurs because this guy's always got a different hair color. He's like 6'9". He looks like a giant like linebacker, and he plays like point guard. It's pretty wild. So I like this Sohan, and I like the. You can speculate with Josh Green if you want to. I like Sohan and Luka as my favorite players.
Well, hang on. So let's go back to the Wembanyama a second, and forget about his long-term upside, and forget about all this stuff. You think he's a good player, right? I mean, are they going to put him right in as like a super stud right now at playing 36 minutes with his skill set? Because if that's the case, don't you want to play him or no?
36 is an extreme number for.
That's what I'm at. I just don't know what kind of play.
I think you're looking at like 30 to 32, but still, that's probably enough to where, yeah, I mean, he's on my long shot playlist, but like it's not that I don't like him. It's just the other guys you're contending with. Like Wembanyama is 600 cheaper than a guy, and Halliburton's not even my favorite. But just to give you like a reference, like Halliburton is 600 more, but like I don't really know how many fail passes he has tonight. Where Wembanyama has a whole bunch. So it's really just about how But the fact that he's going to be unowned on his first slate, I think I'm probably going to take a shot or two. Maybe I will. I think I'm going to. All right.
So you took my main take from this game is that
sorry, man.
No, it's perfect. No, you talked about it. Is that I agree with the Jeremy Sohan play. It fits along the lines of the things that Bobby was talking about, like the guys that makes the next leap. And I don't want to say his minutes were restrained last year, but he certainly wasn't completely unleashed.
Yeah.
I think he's going to have he rates to improve quite a bit. And, you can get him on a slate like this at 4,700. I mean, this could legit be an 8K player, maybe not today, but who knows? If San Antonio is good, and then you get both these guys rocking and rolling, Sohan and Wembanyama, you might have two guys. You might have a 10K guy and an 8K guy. I think it's possible. I think that the chance that Sohan, let's put it another way, I think that the chance that Sohan is 3K in 2 months is 0. I think the chances that he's 7,700 in 2 months is probably at least 20%. Okay, so I'll take a shot with him kind of right out of the gate here. I'm only seeing him own like 15%. And you'll have chalkier guys. I think you have Taylor Horton Tucker in the same price range at twice the ownership for openers, and so that I like that. And Luka, I haven't made any runs yet. Listen, you could certainly when you have Obi Toppin at 3K. I mean, you can play Luka if you want. And
he should be 12.5.
Yeah, and forget that. There's no Jokic on the slate. There's no Embiid on the slate. There's no Giannis on the slate. There's no competition for that price range, really.
Right.
I mean, you listen. Let's look at all the players that are above this. I mean, listen, Tatum's good, Sabonis is good, whatever. But they're not the fantasy producers that Luka is. You know what I mean? So. I'm seeing Luka at 12% ownership or something like that. I can't imagine that actually is the case. Like if you get Obi Toppin at 3K, and then let's say you get even one more that shows up, I think Luka's going to get jammed. I think, and I might be one of the people to jam him. So I like him, and so what happened with Jokic yesterday? And this is what happens when you underprice these guys. They just put up the 70. And listen, there are going to be games where 70 is not enough from these guys, when they're priced the way they're supposed to be. And they did a great job last season of making it difficult to play them, every day. Like when Giannis was 13K or Luka's, they would all, or Jokic was 12.8. They'd project for 65 points, and it would be actually, you still didn't even know if you were supposed to play him or not, Right. But you put these guys at 10K, it's a joke.
Right. And yeah, and one of the things is like Luka's projected for 55 fantasy points. I said this about Jokic the other night. To me, that's a silly projection. I think that it should always be like 60. And it's a great matchup, so maybe you should say it should even be higher. But I think this game, the more I think about it, it should be stackable. Like if you're going to play this game though, too, you should consider pieces of Vassell. He's another guy who's going to take a huge leap. They love this kid, and he's really good. Keldon Johnson, even there's a lot of guys to play with if you want to run a Luka and then 3 guys on the other side or 2 guys on the other side stack. It's going to be just to go back to the Wembanyama thing. One thing about this matchup, I expect Grant Williams to be covering him, which is a very strange situation to put a guy in his first game. One of the most aggressive and obnoxious defenders in the NBA, and he's much smaller, but he will try to force you to body him all the time. And it just seems like maybe he could get Wembanyama a stupid foul or something. So that's the only I don't know. I just don't love this situation, but at the same time, I might feel like an idiot when Wembanyama has 60 at the end of the day, and I didn't play enough of them.
So the last game it's an hour break after like 1,200 other games. And you have this island game, this Portland LAC game. The thing that's shocking to me is not even from DFS perspective, although it impacts it. I mean, if you gave me odds that you get Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Russell Westbrook all active and not on the injury report, I would lay 10 to 1. Like this is just not that. This just doesn't happen. I'm almost shocked. I actually looked to see if like Kawhi Leonard, for example, was even still on the Clippers. Much less whether these guys were active, like which one of them was going to sit like right out of the gate. And they're all playing. It's kind of interesting. And then but what that does is it makes them less viable in fantasy.
Right.
And on the other side, it's now I guess the sort of the Anthony Simon show with
it's Scoot Henderson. Anthony Simon is the role character.
I was going to say with okay, so now you're going to have to tell me who this is. I have no idea who this is. Who is Scoot Henderson?
Scoot Henderson is one of the best players that come in the NBA in a while at the guard position.
Oh my God, another one! Oh my God, these are all geniuses.
Well, no, this was a really loaded draft. He was the number 3 pick officially, but everybody's unanimous number 2, which is a weird thing Charlotte did by not picking him. Mm-hmm. And partly because they had LaMelo, so they couldn't really find the crossover. But okay, better known as the reason why Dame Lillard was traded. How about that as a Scoot?
Okay, that's fair enough.
He has a Westbrook type of style, and he's a young Westbrook is a guy obviously you want to be getting exposure to. I like Scoot a lot. I'm not sure that opening night against the Clippers in a game that I have a hard time seeing staying close. I think the 9-point spread is actually like low. I think that this is a spot where later in the year you'll see like -14, -15 against this Blazers team. But the team looks somewhat competent, somewhat a little more competent. They do have Brogdon in there who's going to get traded at some point. Ayton's probably going to get traded at some point. Maybe they roll with Ayton for the future. We'll see about that one. But for this game, I'm probably going to end up passing on the Portland side. I think Ayton would be my favorite play if I had to pick one. But I am going to play Russ. First of all, you get a Westbrook versus the young Westbrook type of thing. And Westbrook's he's been making me laugh in his season interviews before the season. I still think that and also there's some really egregious stuff about him. People arguing that he's not a top 100 player in the league. It's just kind of ridiculous nonsense. I think Russ takes that personally, and Scoot Henderson specifically was ahead of him on top players in the NBA this season. And there was a big thing made about it on some podcasts about it. So Russ doesn't need any extra narrative, but he certainly will find anyone he can get. So yeah, give me some Russ. That's probably my biggest interest level in this game.
Yeah, I got to update the project. I don't even have Scoot Henderson on my board, so they'll be updated. Don't worry about it.
He doesn't like the rookies here.
I guess. Saberson's giving a 32-point projection. That's pretty healthy.
So I'm just going to double check. Am I maybe making a mistake by not playing Scoot? I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm not playing that.
I mean, he'll be 7K this year soon.
It's the ultimate OK Boomer play to just fade him. You know what I mean? Like Scoot Henderson, who's he? He's going to get Kawhi Leonard. You kidding me? No way.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, so I'm going to go through. I've got a bunch of other players that I like, but these are just the priority guys for me at the moment, and a lot of them are going to be pretty chalky. But again, it's can't. There's so many games. I'm not as worried about it. Tyus Jones, Obi Toppin, Evan Mobley, Russell Westbrook, Taylor Horton Tucker, Luka, Sohan, All three Bulls, some combination of one or two of them. Desmond Bain, and then one of the scorers for New Orleans. That's pretty much all I've got there. But then I've got a bunch of then I've got the Şengüns, the Franz Wagner, the next year, the Garlands, and then potentially stacking up that in terms of game stacks. I like the early ones we talked about. I like the Atlanta. No, sorry, not Atlanta. I like the Washington, Indiana, and I like the Luka with 2 or 3 maybe San Antonios. And I like the whole Jazz team, but I haven't found a good run back from Sacramento that I like. So those are sort of what I'm looking at early in the day.
Yeah, not surprisingly, all the stuff that I like are probably pretty chalky. And I'm sure, as Bobby likes to say, we'll get news of stuff that we're waiting for, and we'll get news about stuff that we don't know that we're waiting for yet.
Yeah.
There's 13 games. There's just, by the law of averages, there's going to be probably 3 guys out that we're going to be starting. That's the way it goes. So we're going to be live at 6.
Yep. And I'm probably going to keep it to cut it to like a tight 30 minutes tonight, because just so many games. I want to make sure that I'm getting all the last minute stuff, which I'll be posting in our premium Discord. So that's the advantage of not being a member, is you get the show for free. The advantage of being in the Discord is we're going to go back and forth on a million things, both during and both up to and after lock. So
just so you guys know, I just ran a Saber symbol, not a contest sim, it's the regular thing. And you're getting just all of the Evan Mobley and Jaren Jackson. Ooh, look at this, like 60% Jeremy Sohan. Ooh.
Interesting.
I'm down with that one.
Yeah.
But there's obviously be more to do than just to run the optimals. You want to adjust for ownership and things like that. That'll do it.
Yeah, and what I would say tonight is there's some extremely concentrated chalk in a few spots. I don't think you should be worried about everybody's over 10% in my lineup tonight specifically, just because there's going to be so many guys, because people are speculating between 10 and 20%. Taking an overweight approach on those guys is probably your best way to get different, because I do think the chalk seems on paper like pretty good chalk right now, with the top end and the Mobley and all that. But certainly these things are never locks. I think, it's going to be top end Mobley. And I forgot to mention Jaren Jackson Jr. As the other main chalk piece. But yeah, it seems like pretty good chalk, but there's so many options tonight. I just don't think you need to force yourself to try and get overly creative. And I know that sounds weird, because you should always be trying to do that. But basketball is a little different than baseball. You're talking about usually, sometimes you want 2 players under 10% owned only. Whereas in baseball, I think you want to have 7,
So the good news is that I have a ticket for the 888. So I'm going to be playing that without losing $888. That's good news. And I'm going to be playing the fadeaway. And because I have that extra money, I'll probably be playing a couple of those single entries.
The FanDuel's got a nice 555 for 200K for first.
Oh, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And I'll be again, if I have time later, we're going to do an NFL video right following this.
Yeah.
And then I'll probably have time. I'll do if I do have time, I'll do again an NBA thing with Saber Sim and the sheets and stuff like that. Just again for the people that are just kind of joining us for the first time, they can see how this all works.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, great job, man. Everybody, thanks so much for being in the chat. Please click the like button when you watch this video and subscribe. Also, I did mention it during the show, but again, sign up with us now. 25% off first month. BobbyFi NBA is the capital B. BobbyFi NBA is the promo code, and good luck to everybody.
Is it 25% off regardless of what package you buy?
That's what it is, right? Yeah.
Okay.
And good luck to everybody. We'll see you guys.